Are some victims of war more sympathetic than others? If you've been following the coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, you may be led to believe that's the case.
But this isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan.
These are prosperous middle-class people. These are not obviously refugees trying to get away from areas in the Middle East.
European people with blue eyes and blonde hair.
And this is not a developing third world nation.
This is a relatively civilized, relatively European.
This is Europe.
Civilized, blue-eyed, brave, and heroic. This is how some media outlets have described the people of Ukraine, fleeing overwhelming violence or staying behind to fight. All of this is accurate, but a few years ago, coverage of the Syrian refugee crisis looked very different.
Behind police lines, the rest began to revolt.
Remember, this is a European capital city.
They are largely responsible for an increase of violent crime.
Criminal networks, it's about border control.
People who are grabbing our children.
We want a Europe free from fear, free from terrorists who shout Allah Akbar.
Break the link between leaving Africa and other parts of the world.
Third countries from different civilizations
loses control in its city.
This was the middle of the desert somewhere. We wouldn't think twice.
One refugee is presented as sympathetic, another is dangerous and backward. Bulgaria's Prime Minister Kirill Petkov says his country is ready to welcome in Ukrainian refugees, telling journalists, quote, "These are not the refugees we are used to. These people are intelligent. They are educated people." Back in 2016, Bulgaria's leadership praised armed vigilantes that were arresting and pushing back mostly Syrian refugees. Now, Petkov says, quote, "There is not a single European country now which is afraid of the current wave of refugees." The ruling Law and Justice Party in Poland was elected in 2015 on a platform of pushing back Syrian refugees and built a barbed wire fence along the Belarusian border. Now the same government is setting up shelter and food camps ready to welcome in Ukrainian refugees. German and American soldiers can even be seen helping process people coming over the border. The same thing is happening in Hungary, one of the most vocally anti-refugee governments in Europe.
We will not import crime, terrorism, homophobia and a brand of anti-Semitism that sets synagogues ablaze.
Over the weekend, all 27 EU countries triggered a never-before-used law, the Temporary Protection Directive. This would allow Ukrainian refugees to stay in EU countries for 3 years without needing to apply for asylum. This is despite Ukraine not being a member of the European Union. The same EU shut its borders during the migrant crisis of 2016 after initially accepting refugees, then paid Turkey and Libya billions of dollars to keep those same refugees from crossing into Europe. So, what has changed?
When you look at what happened in the last refugee crisis in Europe back in 2015, what has changed and the different position now?
Yeah, well, just to put it bluntly, these are not refugees from Syria. These are refugees from neighboring Ukraine. I mean, that, quite frankly, is part of it. These are Christians, they're white, they're very similar to many people who live in Poland. There is a really, really stark difference this time.
Liz Truss, the UK Foreign Secretary, publicly backed the call for British citizens to fly to Ukraine and pick up arms against Russia.
President Zelensky has asked for people from abroad to join an international force. Would you support that?
I do support that, and of course that is something that people can make their own decisions about.
This while the British government pushes through the Nationality and Borders Bill, allowing it to strip away citizenship from those who did the same in Syria a few years ago, and hand down jail terms for some refugees who come in through unofficial means. The footage coming out of Ukraine has been devastating, but it echoes a very similar crisis, one involving millions of displaced people from all types of backgrounds, some fleeing to protect their families, others going back to fight. Many are facing the same Russian military weaponry as those in the Middle East. Some of them were poor, some rich, many educated and cultured and civilized, all of them displaced. The reaction, however, could not be more different. Why is that?